This is Locks and Longshots with Josh Bartosik.
One tiger can't stop an entire wolf pack. I wouldn't say the experiment's failed. I mean, he's got 5 touchdowns on the year.
You just said, I don't think this experiment's been a fail. He has 5 touchdowns on the season. You know how many games they've played? 5. He is a quarterback averaging 1 touchdown per game, Josh.
Dylan Price.
I will never pick Florida again. Those Gators are going to be put on the grill at this point.
Certainly nobody has ate a Pop-Tart and thought, you know what this is going to do? Make me fit. Make me look like I do steroids. Not so fast, my friends. Wahoo.
Justin Chevalella.
I caught a fish.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool.
I don't know if I'd call that a fish, man.
Why is it tough? I thought Virginia's the best damn team in the nation, the way you guys talk about them.
Nobody said that, Justin.
And Thomas English.
The Cal quarterback, the freshman, no idea how to say his name. I'm going to be honest with you. Jaron, is that the first name? Saga Polutele. It was an early day. I mean, I was up at 5 a.m. I was not happy about it.
Oh, you poor thing.
I'll just add this right off the bat here before we begin. I really had a hard time deciding what I wanted to do in this game because anybody who can confidently pull off that shirt, man.
This is Locks and Longshots.
Locks and or long shots.
We run a real tight ship here at Locks and or Long Shots.
And welcome back to Locks and Long Shots. As you can see, we have a lot of fun on this show. We are entering season 2 on the podcast platform. I believe season 3 or possibly 4, I think, overall running this podcast. And, well, we're back. College football is back as well. We are getting set to talk about week 0, which is not very popular with other organizations, other sports, but week 0 is a big deal in college football. So we're going to talk about those matchups. We're going to talk about NFL players trying to go back to college. And then we're going to make our predictions on your conference champions. We got 2 other hosts here today, and let me introduce them real quick. All the way from Long Island, it is Mr. Justin Chevalella, and who currently resides in North Dakota. Big congratulations to Josh Bartosik. Just got moved up to the NAW League. Big shout out to him. Josh Bartosik is with us here today. Hey, gentlemen, welcome back.
Thanks for having us, Thomas. It's a real blast. It's good to be back in all seriousness. Probably should have kept up a little bit better over the summer. That has been, I think, anything but fun in college football, college athletics in a general sense. But it is good to be back. It's college football season. Week 0 does matter. Every game matters. You got to go 1-0 each and every week. So week 0 matters. And to people who say it doesn't, then you're just not true college football fans. But we're here. We're ready to talk about it. I'm back. You're back. He's back. Let's do it.
Yeah, Josh Bartosik getting back, but in Bismarck this time.
Yeah. Definitely started my trip to Bismarck with a bang, or I should say a rear bump, as I got rear-ended on my way here. But yeah, no, so far the city's been great. Working my way around. Can't wait to be part of Bobcat Nation. I will say that Justin, as a former Penn State student, you saying going 1-0 every week just really instilled some PTSD in me.
I did it
I'm
on
really
purpose.
really
the
glad
VT
that I
of him
would
coming out.
never ever have to hear that again. You still do as a part-time Virginia Tech fan. I will never have to hear those words uttered ever.
He's actually staring
ever
at me
again.
right now. One of these pictures I showed you before the show is a signed James Franklin that I got for Christmas.
Well,
one year
you
from
have.
my
Well,
brother.
it's your fault that the Board of Trustees hasn't put enough money into Virginia Tech football yet. It's your fault. So,
got to get the longer runway. And as always on this show, nobody ever asked the host how they're doing. So let's flip it to you, Thomas. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's been so hot here in Missouri, so I'm not particularly fond of the 95 plus degree weather we've been having for the last 3 weeks. So I'd like it to cool off and get into the fall weather because football season starts for me with high school football coming up here shortly. I'll be doing 8-man football this year, so actually excited to figure out with that. There's really high scoring in those games. Looking at a schedule for the team I'm doing in the Liberal Bulldogs last year, and they had a game that was, I believe, 70-something to 70-something. So as you can tell, it's going to be a lot of fun to broadcast. So looking forward to that.
You're going to have tons of highlights there.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to it, and have a good relationship already with their new head coach. So it should be a lot of fun.
And in a sense, it sounds like the defense is might be like the Jets. There might not be many interceptions.
that
not even
there's
here
just
to
more
take the-
space.
He's not even here to take the hit.
Well, it
don't have our
segues
Jets
perfectly into introducing our final host, who could not be here tonight, but he will be on for the official first episode of the year for Week 1, and that is
No. Don't give me this. This is the official first episode. He is missing the first official episode.
But that
He'll be
is
here for the second over the week.
the employee of the month this past month,
Wow.
Dylan Price. He will be joining us, and we're hoping for our very own Lee Corso to make an appearance at some point this season. That is Grant Sheets. He's a part of this as well. We're still trying to reveal him to you guys. This will be a big debut at some point. We're going to get him on, I promise.
As I was making the intro, I was looking for some way to get him in, and there's just no way to get him in.
We need to
There's
pull up a
times
great
that there's a
selfie.
time that each one of us has said his name on this podcast. You
That
can
is
do
true.
it like a Joe Hendricks thing. in
We'll
WWE.
grab a Grant selfie and put it in here at some point. I'll let you guys know who he is. But
But-
let's not waste any more time here. Let's go ahead and get into it. We do have a little bit to discuss here prior to getting into our picks, as always. So let's talk about kind of the highlight of the summer, and that has been all of this legal situation that has gone on between the college 5-in-5 year rule with all sports, but specifically with the NFL. Their bigger issue is NFL players trying to come back to college. In other sports, basketball, wrestling, some of those other ones, the big issue with them is those fifth-year seniors trying to get an extra year and having those lawsuits, especially with the federal lawsuit that was from Colorado. The NFL has now seen Louisiana, I believe it was the 16 NFL players were given an extra year of eligibility to come back. And these were players that were on not necessarily contracts per se, but they were at training camp. They participated with the team, some of them even participating in preseason games as well. So, Justin, I'm going to start with you, and then we'll go to Josh here. But just give me your initial thoughts on maybe, what they can do to solve the situation, how the situation has evolved, and just your general thoughts on the chaos that has been this 5-in-5 issue.
Yeah, we're going to start out with a bang here because I'm hot about this issue. I think it's stupid. It was also all avoidable. The NCAA adding that fifth year of eligibility in the time that they did allowed for these lawsuits to open up. If you, as the NCAA, instead of doing it back a month ago about when they said that, all the athletes would get that 5-in-5, if you did that like now, or if you did that after the season began, specifically for college football, we don't have this issue because seasons are underway. Rosters are already set at 105. Like there's no room to, maneuver for these guys to come back and to keep trying. And I know we saw this, happen in basketball, but those were guys that, declared early and still believed they had eligibility and didn't work out and all that. But you could have avoided this with better timing. You could have avoided this with better leadership. I mean, how long have we been calling now for commissioner of college football? And I hate to bring him back up already, but James Franklin has been beating this drum for years and saying that Nick Saban should be the guy. And obviously Saban has, declined that request of Franklin's and said that's not for him. But there are certainly people out there that could be the commissioner of college football and could solve this problem along with so many more. And all the, legality behind it, I still don't fully understand it, but I think, yesterday's rulings from the SEC and Big Ten are big in the fact that they are not punishing the players. They are punishing the universities if these players were to play for them. Right. So I don't know if another temporary restraining order is posted in a court, if, it can really hold up, because at no point in these rulings did the Big Ten and SEC actually say we'd punish the players if they did this. They went straight to the universities and to the teams themselves, that if, Lane Kiffin and LSU were to bring in one of these players, which is the big news, Daquan Wright was the first and he committed to LSU. And since then others have followed, but they didn't say Daquan Wright would be fine. They wouldn't say he was suspended. They said the university and the football team would face the fine and that they would face all, the other problems with it. And I think legally, I don't know if that would hold up, because if a lawyer comes back and says, or a judge rather comes back and says, well, here's a temporary restraining order, he can play again. Where does that leave us with the rules about the schools getting punished? And I think, but I'm definitely not certain, it's the step in the right direction, punishing the schools and the coaches rather than punishing these players. Now, I also have a take on these players, and I say this with all due respect. But if you're not good enough to make the NFL this year, and you go back to college and play another 12-game season, 13-game season, up to 17 if you play them all on the way to the championship, what really makes you think, after already having 4 years of college experience, makes you think you are set up in the long run to get back in the NFL, especially in the manner in which Daquan Wright, and, like, I'm not trying to attack him because you got to try this if you're him. You were going to get cut anyway. But realistically, what is going to help him get to the NFL? Or is this just a ploy to play college football, play one more year of football, and make the NIL behind it? And he doesn't actually care about the NFL career, which I don't think is the truth. You play college football to get to the NFL. You play, all college sports trying to get to that next level. I do think there's got to be a time that these players kind of wake themselves up a little bit and go, well, if I wasn't going to make the Cleveland Browns of all teams, am I really going to set myself up for a future, in football just by going back to college for another year? And we might see a player or two that does succeed, but you've already been there for 4 years and you couldn't get yourself onto an NFL team. So to me, it's kind of like, look yourself in the mirror. Maybe I should get into my actual career that's not football. Maybe it's a coaching career. Maybe it's a finance career. Maybe it's a media career. Whatever the case is, I do really think that somebody and some of these players need better people in their ears than their agents, because I think their agents are all about go grab that money, because guess what? The agent makes some of that money, and let's try this again. And then you might get drafted and boom, there's more money on the table. I just don't think these college athletes right now have the right people in their ears. I don't think the coaches necessarily do too. I think it's just really kind of a cluster all over with this. And I really do feel bad for the people getting caught up in it. But I do think yesterday's rulings by the SEC, the Big Ten, it seems like at this very moment, the Big 12 is about to pass the ruling tonight, and the ACC is set to follow suit as well. Notre Dame already said they would not pursue NFL players as well. So I think we're in the right direction. And I think most importantly from yesterday and today's kind of coming together is we're finally unifying in college athletics. This is one of those issues alongside the Brendan Sorsby situation over the summer in which enough people are finally fed up and going, we need to fix this and do what's right for college athletics and for those that are currently in college. And I think that is a big, big step forward. Not great still, but big step forward.
I think one thing to point out, you mentioned the Big Ten and SEC passing that ruling. The SEC didn't necessarily have it unanimous. LSU, I believe, abstained from the vote or did not vote. Yes, they voted no or abstained. I believe they abstained. And
it was 16-0 in terms of whoever did vote. So there was no votes cast.
I think I saw something on my Twitter feed that LSU did not vote, which I don't think there's any college, maybe even professional team that has gotten more attention than these LSU Tigers this summer, between the whole Jaden Daniels thing with the cease and desist letter, between Lane Kiffin moving to LSU and all of the media presence that he brings with his big personality, and now this with LSU being the main college getting these NFL players. So I just wanted to point that out, that LSU kind of is the team benefiting the most, and they're also benefiting the most, I should say, in basketball as well. That's another topic for another day. The other thing I want to mention is that this is not done. Like, this is not even going to be done by the start of week 1. There are going to be players that are getting eligibility taken away. This is going to be an ongoing legal battle for weeks. And there's players committing in the transfer portal right now. And I'll use Penn State as an example because that's our alma mater. Josh Reed was a player for Penn State basketball that was given an extra year of eligibility. And then when the Colorado lawsuit went away, they took away the Ohio lawsuit as well. Josh Reed no longer is eligible. So there is this ongoing battle of you add a player and now you think you have a full roster, but who knows? A judge could rule in favor of the stay on the injunction and now say, hey, you're not going to be able to have eligibility. So I think there's just a bunch of logistical problems with this, because we should not be talking about, we're a few days from games here and there's players committing to teams and impactful players. I know Justin mentioned that, they may not be NFL players, but were good enough in college to make some of these training camps and things. So it's worth noting that these are going to be impact players. And I think it's just a logistical nightmare for the NCAA. I do agree with you, though, Justin. I think it's good to see some unity. I think it's good to see the NCAA finally taking control of a situation as far as kind of going against and getting that stay for Colorado. But this is it is a nightmare. So, Josh, I'll go to you with your thoughts.
I, for one, am shocked that Lane Kiffin and LSU are not doing the morally right thing. I truly am shocked. Lane Kiffin seems like a really stand-up guy. Good ethics, great morality.
He stayed with his team in the college football playoffs. That was huge.
That was big, and he didn't make a fuss about it at all.
Didn't try to take him from the inside out.
Nope. The issue that I have with this entire thing, it's the same issues that we all have. Like, yeah, it's great to see unity. It's great to see the NCAA taking action against their own stupidity, though. That's the issue here, is that they are the reason that we have been put in this situation. They're the reason that everything is so messy. And for them to be like, oh, look, we finally did a thing. Great, but it's putting out a fire that you started. Like, it's just idiotic, this entire thing. The 5-5 was dumb. It worked when there was COVID. It doesn't, and it worked for a medical red shirt. That's about it. There's no need for all this other stuff. You left way too many loopholes. They should stop. What they need to do, and this is kind of a different sort of situation, but it kind of adheres in the similar sense because Justin brought up NIL. You cannot add something else that has so many loopholes like this 5-5 and this pro players coming back to college football stuff when you still, after 3 years, have no idea how to regulate NIL. It has not been regulated. You can't keep trying to add more stuff. You can't figure out the one thing that at the time was actually pretty unanimously agreed upon, that college football players should be getting paid, and then you turn it into the NFL. And now you have NFL players trying to come back, and it's turned into an entire mess. It's ruining the product. It takes away completely the entire heart and soul of what college football is. If I'm committing to a college and I'm a freshman, or I'm a guy that's, rode the bench for a few years because I was told able to get my shot and I put in the hard work, and then a guy who just went to the NFL comes back because he wasn't good enough to make an NFL training camp, that would ruin my heart for the game. I wouldn't want to play football anymore. It's unfair. It's not how this is supposed to work. And it's quite frankly it's completely stupid. I understand. It is great to have unity, and it is really, really it just doesn't make any sense. Like, I understand it's great that the college football and NCAA have come back and they've been like, all right, well, we're going to, put our foot down. Yeah, after you let them walk all over you and walk through the front door without any regulation. Like, that's the issue here. It's like, yes, I will give them credit for taking accountability, but it's for something that they already messed up, and it's completely idiotic. It is ruining the sport. It's ruining college athletics in general. And the Brandon Sorsby thing was a thing as well. Like, again, like you mentioned, it was their own fault because it got to a point where he was almost going to be able to play after illegally betting hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And it was something that has never, ever gotten to the point that it did before, where it's like, oh, well, maybe we can let him play. It's always been foot in the ground, like holding our ground. We're not going to let someone play. And then it literally got to a point where, because of so much public outrage, they finally had to be like, okay, maybe you shouldn't play. Like, it's just gone to a point where they have kind of given up on regulating things until they hear public outcry. And you have to be proactive instead of reactive. And if we continue to be reactive as an athletic department, and especially when it comes to college football, it will be a terrible product in less than 5 years.
And I said this over the summer, or at some point when I was on the Catskill Sports Report with Dylan Price, our fellow co-host here on Locks and Longshots. And I said that at some point we need to get back to putting the student athletes first. And I know there's been a lot made of, Matt Leinart took ballroom dancing his last semester, and Rocco Beck the other day saying he still doesn't know what classes he's taking and all that. But even if you want to take the student part out of it, you need to put these athletes and the ones doing it the right way, like back in the forefront, back in, the news cycle of when we were reporting on this guy threw for 444 yards, 7 touchdowns and no interceptions and that type of stuff. Like, we have come to a point where we're highlighting the wrong things, and we have to, because that's what we've gotten to. But like Josh said, it's because the NCAA has kind of caused this, but we also have to put it that we're setting these kids, these student athletes, up for success in their futures. And it really irked me when this whole type of situation got down to the Little League World Series level of things. And it's just like, now we're setting this precedent in life that anytime anything goes wrong or against you, find that loophole and get around it, right? It's not like, your grandparents who were saying they were walking 10 miles through 3 feet of snow on their way to school when they were younger, right? Like, that doesn't happen anymore. Now, these kids, if they face that same situation, they're, going on their, iPad, their laptop, their Xbox, PlayStation all at the same time and just, playing games and that stuff. And that's what it feels like in a sense with all this legal battle. Like, have a backbone, have a spine, and stand up for what's right. And, that's why I said, like, I think we have the wrong people giving information to people at a critical time in their lives and in their development. And it's stupid to say I'm 23 years old and I'm talking like these kids are like 12, but they're 18 through 22-year-olds in college, but we get it. Like, there needs to be a point where the future is, because, there's always that graphic that goes around. This many kids play Little League, and then this many play high school, this many play college, and like this many play professional. And like, there's so many more of these cases that just aren't going to end up, coming back to college or whatnot. And like, that's where we need to get back to, where, we can't keep crying to lawyers and judges every single time. Like, have a backbone, have a spine. And if you're the NCAA, it goes for you too. It's not just on the players and their agents and their parents. Like, the NCAA needs to stand up and finally be like, it's over. Like, sorry, man, you've been here for 17 years already. You're done. You're not getting an 18th year of eligibility. And I think that's just where it's getting sickening. Like, why do we need to go to court for everything? Deal with your problems. It's life.
Yeah. To put it into I was just going to say, to put it into a younger person's terms, because none of these people that are playing college sports now are under the age of 25. I believe the young ones call it put the fries in the bag, bro, and then get a job. And that is quite frankly the only way I can put it. I'm not going to mince my words. Yes, they are much better athletes than I am, but you don't see me crawling back to go try and play high school sports, right? Like, that's just not how this works. So I'm not going to mince my words about it. Get a job.
The one thing I will say, and this is just to play a little bit of devil's advocate, and this is where I'm going to wrap the conversation.
I've heard enough. I'm done. I'm gonna go get a judge to tell you that you can't talk on this podcast anymore.
Right.
Yeah. Well, then I'm gonna finally put my foot down.
Is I do think it is fair for these players to argue this, because when you looked at COVID, and I understand this is a very different situation, COVID players lost a year and were given a year. In the sense of, this is a 5-and-5 rule where essentially players who are only going to get 4 years are given automatically a 5th year. Technically, this class of 2022 is losing a year. That's the only thing I think, and I've said this to some of my people that I've talked to about it. I think it is fair in the ruling that they're getting gypped of a year. I think it sucks because this was inevitably going to happen. Somebody was going to lose a year, and I think it's unfair in that sense, but I think it's the right thing to do, where you had to do it at some point, and the NCAA has to set a precedent of, we're going to do this, and once we say it's done, it's done. There's no complaining, there's no finding loopholes. So while I think it's unfair to some of the players, unfortunately that's the way it is, and I think it's a right ruling to not give these extra eligibility years.
I think you're right in saying these players have the right to argue this, right? And it goes back to what I said at the very beginning on the NCAA could have avoided all of this with better timing. If you release this in November or December, when these 2022 kids are either on practice squads in the NFL for a couple weeks or months at that point, or they're in their job with a company somewhere or whatnot, you avoid all of this. But they did it at a bad time over the summer, and I get it. It helps these current athletes see their futures a little bit better, and these programs with recruiting and all that. But that's where you set yourself back if you're the NCAA. And I made this point at some point, or this analogy. It's kind of long-winded. It's kind of silly. But if I was going 35 miles per hour in a, at a time when the speed limit was 35 miles per hour, right? And then a month later, somebody in the neighborhood complains and says, I think the speed limit's too high. Let's put it back down to 25. They're not coming back and getting me and going, well, you were going 35 before we put this rule into effect, so now we have to give you a ticket. And that, to me, should be the same thing here now, as in which they made this rule for the people currently in school. If you're out, if you're graduated, I'm sorry, this rule doesn't impact you. And I understand that 1 year was always going to get screwed over, because even if you did this in November, you're still screwing over the people that happened in the spring. But it would have been harder for them to argue with the season's already underway and whatnot. But it's just like they made the decision. They said all athletes from here on out get 5 and 5, and the ones currently in school get 5 and 5. They made it pretty clear. And then that all it took was that one lawyer and that one agent to go, well, actually, let's try this. Let's see how we can make this. And of course, the judges, if you do it in the right county, just like the Lubbock judge with the Sorsby case, they're going to rule in favor of what helps their college team or their alma mater. And that's where we run into this problem. But you're right. They have every right to argue this. I just think you should have a stronger stance against it. And I think it doesn't just go on these players, their agents, their parents, the people in their ears. It goes on the coaches to have the moral grounds. Like Lane Kiffin's going to have to cut people from his roster if Daquan Wright is able to join, because they're already.
But he's such a stand-up guy.
They're already over the roster limit. I believe last I heard they were at 112. The roster limit is now 105. So they were already cutting 7. Now they are adding Wright, and at least one other was supposed to go with him. Now you're cutting 2 guys that just went the whole camp with you. And that's where this becomes. So if the coaches had a little bit of a backbone, and if these judges had a little bit of one too, but I'm going to digress. I know we went a lot long. I went a lot longer, but
there's no we here.
But I will say,
I've been so angry about this all summer, because here we are, recent college athletes. I wish college graduates, and we haven't.
Ice cream eating athlete, maybe.
We haven't gone crying back looking to, get more calls at our college radio station because, we're looking for something. We haven't gone back looking for calls on here or there. But, hey, the athletes are. It's just ridiculous.
I think that's a good way to wrap it up. Obviously, there is a lot to unpack with this, and I won't even begin to dive into the legal side of it because it is well over all of our heads. I'm still trying to grasp it all.
Let's get a lawyer next episode.
I watched Suits one time. I kind of got the gist of it.
Maybe Dylan watched quite a few seasons of Suits, so maybe he'll have a
better idea. Dylan want to take the LSAT at some point? No. Isn't that one of his life goals to take the LSAT at some point?
It is. He had a book last time I went to his
if only he was here to defend himself.
Next week when he's on the podcast, let's just treat him like a lawyer. Let's just ask him all these legal.
Can we actually make next week's podcast just us criticizing him taking the LSAT live?
Yeah, we'll talk about that next time when we talk about maybe some lawsuits coming in. Obviously, we're still monitoring the Protect College Sports Act, so still with that. But again, a lot to digest, a lot to unpack. But that is where we're going to wrap it here today. Let's go ahead and talk football in terms of the upcoming season, because this is kind of stuff that happened this summer.
To be played?
I know, right? We still got to talk about some games. Let's go ahead and take a look. The AP poll has been released, and there was a couple of things to note with there. So we're going to quickly dive into the AP poll. I'm going to give you a little bit of kind of an overview of it, and then we're going to bring up our preseason poll and just kind of talk about them both as a whole. So as you can see, the top 5, Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia, Notre Dame, Texas. Then you have Indiana, Miami, A&M, Ole Miss, Oklahoma. That's your top 10, and then you can see the rest through 25. Some things to note. Ohio State got 40 top votes, Oregon 14, Notre Dame 6, Indiana 8. Again, the reigning champions only getting 8 votes for first place, and Miami got 1. The SEC led all conferences with 9 ranked teams. The Big Ten has 8, although they do have 3, I guess you could say, inside the top 6. The Big 12 has 4, ACC has 3, and final spot filled by Notre Dame, of course, an independent team. Worth noting, no group of 6 team is ranked, so that's something to note there. Number 3, Georgia is the preseason top 5 for the 9th straight year. Texas is the next closest to them, with being in the top 5 for the 3rd year in a row. 10 of the 12 college football playoff teams from last year are ranked, and the 2 that aren't were the group of 6 teams in James Madison and Tulane, although they both did receive votes. The last thing I want to note here, yes, the last thing I want to note here is Ohio State as the number one team in the country for the 9th time, but the first since 2015. They're now tied with Alabama for the second most preseason number 1 rankings. And on that same note, the only other time, 11 number 1 teams have started and finished number 1 in the AP poll since they began in 1950. The last was Alabama in 2017. So that's your AP poll. Let's go ahead and take a look at our poll here on Locks and Longshots. We all did ours. And you'll notice it is very similar. So we have Ohio State, Oregon. We have Texas up a couple spots, Indiana up a couple, Georgia, Notre Dame kind of flipping around. 7 through 15, really, through 20 is relatively the same as well. You'll see Oklahoma State is in there for us. Clemson is in there for us as well. So a couple of teams, but overall it is very similar is what I noticed. I'm going to kind of leave it up to you guys to kind of decipher what stands out for you. Justin, we started with you last time, so I'm going to go with Josh. Lead us off here this time.
I mean, the only thing that really stood out to me, and I'm pretty sure that we talked about before we started this podcast, and Justin, I know, was on the same page, is Indiana being ranked as low as they were is outright criminal. I've always been one of the people that thinks if you won the national championship, not just won the national championship, but went undefeated and pretty much smacked almost everybody you played the entire season. I don't want to hear about their schedule leading up. They still went undefeated. You should be the preseason number 1 team. Yeah, they've lost a lot of talent, but they also brought in a lot of talent. And I think we've learned at this point to not doubt Kurt Cignetti. I think Ohio State's a very good team. They always are. I just think Indiana should be ranked higher, and I think that they should be number 1. That's the main thing for me. Penn State is an interesting one where, yes, Matt Campbell brought in a lot of talent. However, that was a Iowa State team that didn't exactly have the best year. Yes, they were injured a lot. But it's a thing for me with Penn State where I understand that I think Penn State is ranked in the prospect of what they could be, the potential, where I think, quite frankly, for Penn State, we've seen this before in the past. Like our freshman year when Penn State went, I think it was 7-5. The next year they were unranked, but they had a lot of talent that was returning, and they made a lot of good moves in the transfer portal, and then they finished the year ranked and they won the Rose Bowl the following season. This feels like a different thing for Penn State with me, where they're getting ranked on potential instead of what it really should be based off of last year, where I just don't necessarily think – I think there has to be a healthy mix because Penn State had the talent last year, sure, but it obviously fell completely flat. And I think a team that ended up going 7-6 or 8 or whatever it officially was shouldn't be ranked in the top 20. That's just me. But I mean, again, like it's so early. Like these preseason polls don't mean anything to me. They're never, especially if it's anything like last year, they're not going to be remotely accurate to the end of the season is going to be. I just think you have to have a lot more respect for a team like Indiana, especially with how great their season was last year. I think it's just atrocious.
The one thing I want to say with Indiana is I agree. I do think you have when you do the you mentioned the preseason poll is so hard to rank because you haven't seen these teams against other competition. You have no idea how they stack up. You're just going based on what you think as far as on paper. I do agree. I think Indiana should be a little higher. I did have them, I believe, at 5, so right around that area. I disagree a little bit with always having the reigning champion as a preseason number 1. I think that's, you do have to analyze it a little bit. The one thing that I wanted to point out is the Big Ten. They're going for an unprecedented 4th title in a row, and they have the top 2 teams, both in our poll and in the AP poll, in Ohio State and Oregon. So, Justin, I'll go to you now with your overall thoughts on both of these polls, but also, is the Big Ten setting up for a potential 4th title?
There's no reason the Big Ten can't have that next title and make it 4 in a row. You look at Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana, you can, potentially include, just on our poll alone, USC, Michigan, Penn State, Washington, Iowa, the ball bounces the right way, and they're right in there too, especially when you get favored by some easy schedules in like Penn State's case. USC is a different story, but, easy schedules could have you, bouncing up there like Indiana 2 years ago, who I know got bumped in the first round, got crushed in the first round. But regardless, I think the Big Ten certainly has set it up. And I think we're going to see it all play out in a very similar manner in which, the Big Ten, the top of the Big Ten is better than the top of the SEC, but the SEC's depth, and that same stupid conversation that we have every single season. But from a general perspective, I agree with Josh that, Indiana should be higher. I ranked them third. I didn't rank them first because they do lose the Heisman at quarterback, the most important position on the football field. And I tend to agree that there's like a low point for the reigning national champion. And for me, that low point is 3. Like at the end of the day, they're still a team that won the national championship last year. They still have the same coach. They bring a lot of players back. They bring a great transfer class in, led by one of the best transfer quarterbacks, Josh Hoover, coming from TCU. Like they've got talent to repeat. They have the chance to do it again. I think putting them at 6 in the AP poll, I think is what it shows. And kind of my big takeaway on preseason polls is the only thing that matters in the preseason is brand recognition. Like even looking at our poll right now, realistically, why is LSU 13 after the season they had last year, right? Like, are we thinking that Lane Kiffin plus a team full of transfers from not all from Ole Miss, like he didn't bring the whole Ole Miss roster with him. A lot stayed with Pete Golding. We think him with a bunch of transfers that are trying to find chemistry. Are they really at this point, preseason, the 13th best team in the country? Absolutely not. But LSU's brand, are they one of the biggest in the country? Yes. And that's going to help them. And that's why we see Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Georgia, Notre Dame, like in the AP poll, all ahead of Indiana, because Indiana's brand isn't as big as those teams. So that's what matters in the preseason is how big is your brand? Because realistically, there should be a group of 6 team on here because we all know there's a group of 6 team and they'll show face pretty early on in the season that is better than some of these teams that we have thrown in here at the end of our poll or that the AP has at the end of their poll. Like there's one of those teams, maybe 2 of them like last year, that show face and that we're like, yeah, they're better. Obviously, we don't know that team right now, and it's tough to predict, and that's why everything is based kind of off of the big name conferences. But there's a group of 6 team that's better than, let's say, I don't know, Utah. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there, right? Like there's a group of 6 team in the top 20 right now, and I truly believe that, and they'll show face. And in a couple of weeks, we'll adjust to that. The AP will probably take a little longer to adjust to that, like we've seen in the past, but the only thing that matters in the preseason is brand recognition. It all just leads to fun and stupid conversation and fodder over it all. And we're no different. We wanted to put our poll together and, we did. So that's what it's about. The thing that really matters preseason is the predictions that I know we'll get to here in a minute.
Justin, if you want to pull up the AP poll once again, I just want to note a couple of things. I don't really have anything additional to add. The only thing I wanted to note is the AP preseason top 5. When you look at all of those teams, the one thing they all have in common is a returning starting quarterback. I know that was something you just mentioned with Fernando Mendoza. And
I'd love to point out, because this is my favorite stat that isn't talked about in the real media enough, that going from the first year of the 12-team college football playoff to the second year, from 24 to 25, teams with returning starting quarterbacks from 24 playoffs to 25, they all missed the playoffs in 25. And, the Georgia Gunnar Stockton, I did not count him as the starter because he did not get them to the playoffs. He did start their playoff game, but he was not their starter in 24. That was Carson Beck. But if you go in and see how bad those teams with returning quarterbacks actually fell off, just naming a few: Penn State, Clemson, SMU. I think Tennessee was the only team that brought in a new quarterback that missed the playoffs, going from 24 to 25. Like that's crazy. I don't think that happens this year, but one of those top 5, if not 2 of them, is going to miss. Mark my words, and I'll have my predictions on that in a little bit when we do the conference predictions. But it is crazy how much returning production is thought of when we've seen that returning production doesn't mean a lot. Penn State, Clemson last year are prime examples of that.
Hey, they made a bowl game.
Let me just lob up LeBron James for Chevy.
Yeah, that was awesome. Great job. I'm giving you an assist. But I don't. Let me see if I have it right in front of me. But I mean, it's a crazy stat.
But an additional thing with that is you look at 6 and 7 teams right there. Indiana gets one of the top quarterbacks in Josh Hoover. Miami goes out and gets one of the top quarterbacks in Darian Mensah. So interesting little situation there with the top 7 in the poll.
So here we go. Boise State, Arizona State, Penn State, SMU, and Clemson all brought back their quarterbacks from 24 to 25. They went a combined 40-26 in the regular season, and that included their bowl game, and none of them made the playoffs. Oregon, Georgia, Texas, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Tennessee, and Indiana all changed their starting quarterbacks from year to year, 81-16. Notre Dame missed the playoffs, which obviously was a point of contention. Texas missed the playoffs, another point of contention, and Tennessee missed. So it's not, guaranteed that if you bring in a new quarterback, you're going to make the playoffs. But if you brought yours back, 0-5 in our 1-year sample size.
It's definitely something worth noting. I think that's where we'll leave the top 25 polls. Preseason, only so much you can really say. And unfortunately, we're going to get a little bit of a look at a couple teams, but not necessarily ones that are going to be in our poll come week 1 with these week 0 games. And that segues me perfectly. We're going to kind of speed run these week 0 games because there's some okay ones to watch, but it's not necessarily any highlights that we want. So we're going to go through these picks. We're going to give Dylan's picks as well. He has put those in. We're going to start, and we're just going to go from 11 a.m. when this first game kicks off all the way down to, I believe, 10 p.m. or 9 p.m. possibly is the last game. So let's go ahead and get things underway.
Use Eastern time? Or am I outnumbered here? Because it starts at 12.
I believe that is Eastern time.
I thought it started at 12 Eastern.
Maybe it is 12 Eastern time. I thought it was because... Yeah, either way, it's an early morning game, and that is because it is in Dublin, Ireland.
Yeah, it's at noon.
And that is the Aer Lingus game. It's okay. At noon, maybe the 10 Eastern was that one I was thinking of. But it is TCU and UNC, a rematch of, I believe it was the opening game last year.
Bill Belichick's first game.
Yeah, I believe that was their season.
Wasn't
both
it the
teams'
Thursday
season
night?
opener. Yep.
It was.
And this was Bill Belichick's debut. Of course, it was Josh Hoover as well. And it was a TCU trample, 48-14. Again, this one in Dublin, Ireland, so who knows what can happen in a neutral site. Justin, we'll start with you.
This is so much fun because we really don't know anything about any team, just like going into last year. And, TCU, you'd love to point back and be like, well, they return Hoover to go alongside Sonny Dykes, who's brought in a great culture, but you can't, right? So we're just picking blindly. Belichick has a lot to prove, but Sonny Dykes has actually proved it. I'm going to go with TCU and the Horned Frogs here in week 0.
Yeah, get it right. It's a 5-hour time difference ahead. Dublin is than the East Coast, which means that Bill Belichick's girlfriend will be able to legally drink in Ireland. With that being said, I will never, ever pick UNC, and I will never, ever pick Bill Belichick, especially in a week 0 game. It's going to be TCU.
I'm going to go with TCU as well. I had them, I believe, ranked in my poll. I think I had them 23 or 24. I think it's a good TCU team. I think there's too much going on with UNC right now. Let's be honest. They're focused on Mike Malone heading to UNC to take over for their basketball program. They're not worried about Bill Belichick anymore. And I'm going to take TCU. I think they're just the better team. Let's move on to our second matchup, which involves a ranked team. I believe this is the only game with a ranked team involved, and that is San Jose State at number 14th USC, who does return Jaden Mayava. Of course, this is going to be an impact game for USC, trying to get started on the right note. Josh, we'll start with you.
Yeah, impact game. Trojans by however many they want. They're not losing this game.
Sorry, should mention as well, Dylan has chosen UNC for this contest. So I forgot to go to the last one and give Dylan's pick. So he's riding with Bill Belichick. Josh, if you want to finish there.
Yeah, just USC by however many they want to. This is probably the most boring week of week 0 games I've seen in a long time.
Justin?
Jaden Mayava is going to set the tone for his season and for USC's season in this game. That being said, whether he has a good performance or a bad performance, they're still going to win because they have so much more talent than San Jose State. However, I think this performance will be very telling of if USC is going to finish in the top 25 like we have them right now, or if they will have another bad year and Lincoln Riley heats up even more.
I'm going to take it one step further. I think this is Jaden Mayava's debut of this is going to be my Heisman season. I think he's a dark horse to make it to New York City this year. I'm not saying he's going to win it. I'm not saying he'll even make it to New York City, but I think he is one of those guys you have to watch out for. He's just so talented. And like you guys were saying, the San Jose State team, unfortunately, just doesn't match up with USC. So I will take the Trojans. Let's take a look at our next game, which may be one of the more competitive games on the docket. I know Josh has invested interest in it, and this is NC State at Virginia. Something to note here. This was originally supposed to be a non-conference game in Brazil. So this is kind of flipped on its head here. It's become a conference game at Virginia. So, Josh, I'll let you pick, although maybe we already know.
Yeah, I mean, look, I said I will never bet on UNC. And the thing is that I also never bet against NC State in a Week 0 game because it's the only week they'll ever have hope for this football team. The only bright spot on this team is the fact that CJ Bailey decided to not go in the transfer portal and decided to stick it out with the Wolfpack. But, I mean, this team is probably not very good. Virginia's got a very familiar face on the other side for us Penn State fans, but I'm still going to go with NC State just because it's where my heart resides.
Justin?
We all know my hatred for UVA last season when they were being ranked in the top 25. It was well noted here on this program. It hasn't changed this year. I still don't think they're that good of a team. Look, I like Bo Perbula. I think he's a fun quarterback, but it's now 2 stops that he's proven that he can't really take a team to that next level in a sense. I know he got banged up last year. He played through it, but realistically, I think Missouri was expecting a little bit more. And also, I get it. He didn't play much at Penn State, whatever. The thing is, I just don't like UVA. I also see NC State won this meeting last year, 35-31, and NC State won 4 of its final 5 games last year to end its season. So they took momentum into the offseason, and CJ Bailey coming back is huge for them. Give me the Wolfpack. I am siding with Josh.
Sorry.
I think this is kind of an intriguing quarterback matchup just because these are 2 guys that have been, I guess you could say okay quarterbacks throughout their career, maybe good at best, and they kind of fly under the radar. If you're a fan of these teams, you think highly of them, but I think these are 2 quarterbacks that these are 2 quarterbacks that are trying to prove themselves, trying to take their teams further in like you mentioned. I disagree a little bit, Justin, with the Mizzou take and Bo Perbula. I think he highly elevated that team greater than what they should have been, and that's maybe a little bit biased with my coverage of them. But I do think Bo is going to get a win here in Week 0 against NC State. And I'm so bad with this, apparently, but Dylan also took USC. I forgot to mention that. And he is also taking UVA here. I promise that is the last time I'm going to forget. It probably won't be.
Also, did you guys see UVA's? Did you guys see UVA's starting offensive line?
I did.
It's all 5th, 6th, and 7th year seniors, and their tight end is a 5th-year senior himself. They got an old team. Those knees are going to be hurting.
I was going to say,
right.
yeah.
It's all right. They have experience to protect Bo. So, all right, let's move on to our next matchup, which is a little bit interesting because Jacksonville State was competing for a conference title last season, and North Dakota State, who, if you're not familiar with the Bison, of course, we do know some quality prospects that come from North Dakota State in the NFL draft in the past couple of years, but they are an FCS powerhouse. It is undisputed. They are one of the best FCS teams ever. They are now making the transition to FBS, their first year in the Mountain West. So, Josh, who do you like?
Yeah, I'm not just going to say this because I now reside in North Dakota, and this is a 2-hour drive for me.
I didn't think about that.
Shocker, guys. Bismarck, North Dakota is 3 hours away from the nearest sign of civilization, but the city itself is great here. Go Bobcats. North Dakota State has already proven in years past that they can compete at the FBS level, and I think they're going to prove that again today. This is not going to be one of those situations where they have to, take a few years to really get their footing. They're going to hit the ground running. I'm not saying they're going to run away and, go undefeated this season, but they are going to win this opening game, and they're really going to set the tone for what should be a pretty good-looking first year in FBS football.
Justin?
These are two offenses that at their respective levels were actually really fun last year and put up a lot of points. Jacksonville State had, a bunch of big performances, 30-plus points multiple times. North Dakota State still at the other level was able to do the same, putting up a ton of offense. I just think North Dakota State in that transition, I think it means a little bit more to get that first win up at the FBS level. And I think it also just like their offense is going to translate. Like I don't see that not translating. I think their offense is going to be too tough to stop. I have North Dakota State and the Bison where Josh lives now. I have them getting the win.
I just like North Dakota State. I think they're a fun team. You look at their history in the FCS, and I think they're just fun to watch. They're fun to, whenever the FBS is kind of at that break point where the FCS is playing their semifinal and championship, and you kind of get to watch that because that's the only football on. And North Dakota State was always in those games. So I'm going to take
They're
North
my
Dakota
sleeper
State
to finish
well.
in the top 25.
Well, I think we're going to talk about that a little later because North Dakota State could be a team to watch out for. Dylan is also going to take the Bison, and he says with a warm welcome. Our next matchup is going to be honest, two teams that probably aren't going to be anywhere in the conversation of conference championships or anything like that. It is Sacramento State against Eastern Michigan. Josh, we'll start with you.
I'm going to be full frontal here, gentlemen. I don't know much about any of these teams. I just know that Eastern Michigan is closer to North Dakota than Sacramento, so we're just going to go with that. I'm not even going to try and front.
Okay, we'll go in there. Justin?
I'm going to kind of pull the same as Josh. I don't know anything about either of these two teams, but the Eastern Michigan's in the MAC, and the MAC is pretty good, so let's give it to Eastern Michigan.
I'm going to take Eastern Michigan as well, just because, like you guys are mentioning, I think this is one of those games where Sacramento State is just not a football team. But I will say, if you look at their basketball team, they actually look pretty good this year. I don't know if any of you guys follow
always
basketball.
Brings up a way to play basketball.
Mike Bibby is their head coach. That should be a name you recognize. So they got Mike Bibby, Mikey Williams, a couple of other players. So, but I will take Eastern Michigan.
Speaking of basketball, good time to mention the Knicks won the NBA championship.
Well, they did. Speaking of things that we're not talking about, is the New York Knicks. let's go to our next
matchup.
Adjust
my hat real quick.
Oh, right. Let's go to our next matchup here, which is Hawaii and Stanford, a rematch of last year's. I believe that was also in week 0, and Hawaii won it on a walk-off field goal with Micah Alejado at the quarterback position. Josh, did they do it again?
I think they do it again, just not in walk-off fashion. I just think that Stanford has kind of given up in terms of the football aspect of things. And Hawaii is just always a fun team to watch. They're always a fun offense. I think I really like what that program has done. Stanford is just not a team that I really am intrigued by in any sense.
Justin?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat in which I'm actually really high on Hawaii this year. Alejado is arguably one of the most tough quarterbacks in college football. Like he played through hell last year and won them games. I don't know why, but Stanford's telling me it's them this game. So I'm going to take Stanford. I'm going to take the tree.
Would you say you're high Hawaii on Hawaii? Sorry, that was bad.
That was terrible.
That was a good try.
Go ahead and mute him, Justin. I think I'm going to ride with Hawaii as well. If you watch any MMG content, he's a big fan of Micah Alejado. But I think just Hawaii in general, it's always fun to root for the Rainbow Warriors. So with that, we'll move on to our next game, and we got 2 more going. So we're going to go quickly through these next 2. These are the nightcap games. It is New Mexico State and Florida State. Josh?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Florida State, obviously, last year had a couple started the year with a allegedly good win, and then they did the thing they always do, which is struggle through the midway point of the season. New Mexico's a fun team. The thing about it is Florida State doesn't really fall off till I would say mid-October. So I'm going to give it to Florida State this time. I'm really just running on fumes here, boys. We're going to go Florida State.
Justin?
I'm going to agree. There's no reason Florida State should lose this game. And if they do, buy Mike Norvell. You're done after week 1. It's that simple. This is a must-win game because you have to be competitive in the ACC this year if you're the Seminoles. And if not, James Franklin will walk right down to Florida State and will take that job. If that's my guess, that's my prediction. But I think Mike Norvell answers the call for a little while, and it starts with a win in this one.
I'm going to say the same thing. I think this is a big hot seat moment for Mike Norvell. This season. He's got to improve. And if he doesn't here in game 1, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Interesting here, Dylan is going to go with the upset again. He's going to go with New Mexico State. So we'll talk about them. I think he also likes them a little bit later on as well. Our final game, Memphis and UNLV. And this is worth noting that it's an important G6 game because this could be one that we talk about later on in the season. And we're going to start with Josh because his favorite quarterback is playing in this game. And
I'm so glad you mentioned that.
Is the UNLV experiment going to work?
I think it's going to work better than the Auburn experiment when he had 5 touchdowns in 5 games, which I got a degree in statistics and math, and for some reason I thought those were good stat lines last year. It's real bad on my end. I'm going to go with UNLV. I mean, Jackson Arnold, look, he's a guy that I don't love when you get so far on a guy's career. You say it was a former 5-star prospect or 5-star recruit, but he's shown flashes at times of being that guy. I think Auburn was never the right spot for him. I think the offensive line was bad. I think the SEC was just a bad get for him in the first place. I think the lights were too bright. The lights won't be as bright when it's Memphis versus UNLV. So I think UNLV will get this one. I think Jackson Arnold has a good performance. I think it's going to be one of those that people overhype. From a week 0 performance from the quarterback, and then he kind of cools off and goes back to the Jackson Arnold we know. But I do think he will win this game for UNLV.
Justin?
Yeah, I think if these two teams had stayed the same coaching-wise last year, or from last year, I'd be taking Memphis in this matchup. But this is the first season under Charles Huff, who doesn't believe he'll be at Memphis long. He believes he's in line for a Power 4 job at some point, which I actually do agree with. But I just think the coaching change, trying to bring in new players, get the chemistry, all that, while Dan Mullen has stuck the same and just brought in players that are above the skill level of UNLV, or at least they played at the skill level above UNLV like Jackson Arnold did when he threw 5 touchdowns in 5 games in the SEC. I have UNLV this time around. I do think Memphis will be competitive this year, but I just don't know if they can be that in week 0 as they could try to get their feet under them with a new head coach.
Yeah, obviously with the new head coach, I think Memphis is bringing in like 70 new guys, so it's going to be interesting to see.
Tough to replace.
It's going to be interesting to see how they gel. So I'm going to take the team that just is bringing back more, and I'm going to go with UNLV. Dylan is going with UNLV as well, and he says Jackson Arnold at UNLV. Holy moly, Josh! So
the experiment lives on.
Yeah, the experiment lives on. So those are our picks. If you don't know how our picks work, normally it's just 1
we
point
don't either.
for each pick, and then we're gonna figure out what we're gonna do with our locks and we're gonna figure out what we're gonna do with our locks and long shots this year. We might change it up, but that is our weekly pick'em. And right now, since it's such a small schedule, we're gonna move on to our conference champion picks because this is important. And the way we're gonna do this is these are also going to be points, so those will be added at the end of the year during conference championship week. And if you do pick your preseason one correctly, you will obviously get a point. And maybe we'll give 2 points. We'll talk about it later down the road. But we are going to start with, we have the 4 Power 4 conference teams. We also have the Mountain West and Pac-12 as the realignment conferences. And then we're going to open it up to these guys to pick another group of 6 team that they like, that they think will win their conference championship and potentially be in the college football playoff. Let's start with the newly formed Mountain West. Well, I guess I shouldn't say newly formed, but newly realigned Mountain West. Justin, who is your conference champion?
It feels like we just talked about half the Mountain West because North Dakota State's playing week 0. UNLV is playing week 0. Hawaii, like it feels like we talked about all these teams. I like UNLV and I like Dan Mullen, but I like Hawaii. I know I have them losing to Stanford, but hey, guess what? Out of conference games don't matter when it comes to conference championships. So give me Hawaii and the Rainbow Warriors to win the Mountain West.
Josh?
I know I just made a little bit of fun of Jackson Arnold, but I do think the Mountain West is kind of a perfect conference for him to really take a team to the next level. I also think having a guy like Dan Mullen as your head coach, who has been a proven winner had a really good season last year with UNLV, has been a prolific head coach for them in the short period of time. I think UNLV has a chance to really go and do something special this year, so I'm going to pick them to be my conference champion.
I love an underdog story, and I guess maybe they're not necessarily an underdog story, but I like fun stories, I'll say. And North Dakota State is a fun story, coming from the FCS to the FBS and seeing if they can replicate that success. So I'm going to take them as a kind of a, I guess, I don't know, is the word Cinderella story there? What would you call that? I wouldn't call them an underdog necessarily, but
I would call it
I'm going to
more
go with
of a. I was going to say I call it more of a Cinderella than a. I don't even know because they're even a fun story.
Yeah,
I
we'll just
guess.
say they're a fun story and
Unexpected,
it's always fun.
maybe. Unexpected.
Yeah, let's go with
because
that.
no one expects them to win year one.
Right. Let's go with that. I'll take North Dakota State. And with that, we'll go to Dylan's pick, which in the Mountain West, he says, and he did send us a long text message, so I'll just read it verbatim. He says, after week 7, New Mexico didn't lose a regular season game. They even beat his darlings in the UNLV Rebels. They lost in the Rate Bowl to Minnesota, but only by 3. He says they returned 14 starters, including their quarterback. So watch them to make some noise this year. Dylan is going with New Mexico. We'll go now to the Pac-12. Of course, the Pac-12 has kind of come back. We lost them for a little bit, and they have been revived. And, let's give a round of applause for that. That's always good.
Now,
so we'll start.
They should try to get some of their teams back, but
yeah. Since Dylan ended this last one, we'll go ahead and give his pick first. He's going to go with Fresno State. They returned 13, one of his favorite head coaches in the country, back for a second run after they went 9-4. He says Matt Entz is going to ground and pound you to death, and their defense is full of dogs. If they can get solid quarterback play, they're his dark horse, and he's willing to bet that they win it. I'll go next and talk about the San Diego State. I think that is a team that I like this year. Sean Lewis is back, 9-4 last year. They had a very good ground game, 25 rushing touchdowns, but their statement wins have come from defense. They only allowed 9 rushing touchdowns. They bring back Lucky Sutton in their running back, who's a Doak Walker Award potential winner. I think this is a San Diego State team that, because of their defense, could make their way through the Mountain West. Josh?
Yeah, I'm actually going to agree with you. I think, you see a lot of stuff about defense winning championships. And San Diego State, I think all they have to do is just get a little bit better on the offensive side of the football. It's a low bar. That offense was pretty brutal to watch at times last year, but I do believe that offense can improve just a little bit more, a little bit more experience under the helm. And that defense is just so good. It'll be almost as good, if not as good as last year. So I'll go San Diego State. I'm just so happy the Pac-12 is back. I'm so excited.
It is exciting. Justin?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a team that had success prior and then lost it last year. And I think maybe the new conference will help them, and that's Boise State. They made the playoffs in that first year. Did you guys know Maddox Madsen is still their quarterback? Because I thought he would have graduated by now, but he is starting again for Boise State under Spencer Danielson now in his 4th year with Boise State. And they don't have an Ashton Genty to carry them that we know of at the moment. They don't have an Ashton Genty to necessarily
I heard
carry
he's
them.
trying to go back to college.
After his injury.
Maybe he's on his way back. Yeah, after he nearly, didn't play this year. But I don't know. I just think they've got such a fun offense that can attack in multiple ways. And when you have a guy like Maddox Madsen who's got that experience, I know I brought up that stat saying the experienced quarterbacks failed last year, but we don't know about going from year 1 to year 2 to year 3, how that plays out. And I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt this year and have them win the first new Pac-12 title.
Yeah, I guess we can call it that. Let's go next. I know we have our Power 4 teams here, but let's go to our final group of 6 team as well. Another team that you like, that you think could win the conference championship. I will allow it to be from the same conference that we already talked about. If there's another team that you want to talk about, I know I'm just saying that because
I'm confused here. So this is just any group of 6 team?
It can be. If you, I went in another conference, so American, Sun Belt, Conference USA. If there's a team you like from those 3, I can say my pick first. I like Navy. I think Navy has a schedule where if they can somehow get a couple of wins, and including a win over Notre Dame, I mean, it kind of would catapult you, especially if Notre Dame is ranked very highly. If they can get a win, they can be into there instantly. Dylan did have Navy at first. He has since changed to UNLV as an additional team that he likes. Of course, they are in a conference that we already talked about. But I'll leave it up to you guys. I went with the route of picking a different conference. Dylan stuck with the conference that he already talked about. I'll leave it to your interpretation. Justin, we'll start with you. Unless you want
I
more
am
time.
going to. What's up?
Unless you need
No,
more
I'm
time.
good. I mean, I was deciding whether I should go the MAC or if I should go the Sun Belt, but I'm going to go the MAC. And I'm going to have some fun here because I really know nothing about them. But what I do know is that the Akron Zips decided to run a really cool promo this summer in terms of a season ticket holder gets to call the first drive as the offensive coordinator alongside head coach Joe Moorhead, who also serves as the offensive coordinator. And I just think that's one of the coolest promos around. Like, buy season tickets and, hey, you might call plays. And if you're Robert Morris, I mean, it's a little bit of a slap in the face the first week. But, hey, guess what? I'm going to pick Akron to win the MAC because this guy who they announced yesterday, and I don't remember his name off the top of my head.
I got it for you. It is an elite name. I'm not going to lie. Martin Allen Wims II.
Yeah, Martin Allen Wims II. I trust that he is going to get something done on his drive, and then Joe Moorhead's going to use that momentum the rest of the year. So give me the Akron Zips to win the MAC.
Josh,
I can't wait for some action, midweek MAC.
You know what?
Like,
shout
it's
out
one
to
of the
Big
most exciting times.
Shout out to Big Cat and Bordeaux as well. I know they were both top 10 finalists for it. It would have been cool to see, but I am glad that like a true Akron fan, I believe he's graduated from Akron. It's good to see an Akron fan actually win it. Although it would have been pretty funny to see Big Cat from Barstool running a flea flicker on the first play.
I would have done the same. I would have probably run a Wildcat flea flicker, something
Jumbo
stupid.
Wildcat.
Jumbo Wildcat, like call the play like Ice Cream Sunday or something like that, just because we know my love for ice cream, like Ben and Jerry's or something
Ben
like
and
that.
Jerry's,
We'd have some fun if I was running the offense for a drive.
Josh, who is your group of 16?
Yeah, I'm
I know
also
it
have
can't
some
be
fun
Ben
with
and Jerry's.
this because that question threw me for a loop. They're not winning week 1, although it would be really funny if they did it, and the entire city of State College would lose their mind. But how about Marshall? The last time that they were ranked, I think, was COVID. I think before that, they were like in the top 15 like years ago. I don't know. I remember growing up one year and seeing on my TV that Marshall was ranked in the top 15. I was like, how in the hell does that happen? And you know what? Maybe it happens this year. So we're going to go with Marshall. Also, I like that shade of green. I think it's a nice color.
And they're the Thundering Herd, I believe, right?
Yeah, I wish they were the
That's
big green. I think it's stupid, but Thundering Herd.
Well, isn't Big Green Texas?
Yeah.
Yeah, North Texas.
Well, I think they're mean green, aren't they?
I think I was in a green mood because I also almost picked North Texas, but I feel like we talked about them too much last year. So
That's all right. That's all right.
And they lost.
All right,
Drew
so
Mcmaker.
yeah. So we have talked about our group of 6 teams. Let's go ahead and dive into our Power 4. I know we're already over an hour. We're going to try to cut down these episodes a little bit. Hopefully,
it won't happen.
Hopefully, it won't happen.
I'm not speaking much, gentlemen. It's a rare thing for me today.
Let's start with the ACC. And who would like to start? I can start if you want, or we can start with Dylan.
Yeah, go Dylan and then you, and then get it back to us.
So Dylan kind of kept it simple. He said the rich got richer. Darian Mensah plays perfectly into the style, and they're still full of dogs defensively, offensively. So Dylan says, give me Miami. And I'm going to be honest, I'm on the same page as him. I think when you look at a trio of offensive players in Darian Mensah, Malachi Toney, and Mark Fletcher Jr., who decided to skip the NFL draft, he probably would have been selected this year. Those 3 are just very, very good. The only question I have is their defense. Is their defensive line going to be as impactful as it was without Ruben Bain Jr. and Akeem Mesidor? But that's the only question I have is that defensive line. I still think the rest of the defense is solid. So give me Miami. I agree with Dylan. Rich got richer. Josh, we'll go to you next.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing with Miami is that they do the same thing every year where they have a game in November that they absolutely should win and they lose. The thing is that I don't even know if that happens this year because the ACC is that unbelievably terrible this year. I think there's nobody else besides Miami that really stands a chance. Everyone's going to say Clemson, but again, I think it's strictly name recognition. I think we all saw the year that Clemson had last year. don't think they did too much to really improve themselves on the offensive side of the football. I think it's going to be Miami. They went on a kind of a Linsanity run. I think some people would say. I don't think anybody really expected them to go on the run that they did, making it to the college football playoff. I thank them every day for beating Notre Dame in that early season game because that proved to be the right choice in the college football playoff. But I think Miami's going to do it again. I love Darian Mensah. I think he's a great quarterback. I think, like Dylan said, he fits well with that system. So it's a simple, it's boring, but I'm going with Miami.
This is a conference in ACC that I think we all said Miami. I think a couple of you guys said Georgia Tech last year, and it completely flipped on its head. So, Justin, are you rocking with Miami as well to make it a clean sweep, or are we going to go a different route?
I'm not rocking with Miami because I don't trust Darian Mensah in the big moments. Now, the fact of the matter is it's the ACC, so there aren't a lot of big moments, but Miami did falter a couple times last season, and I do think they have a lot of talent. I do think the rich got richer, but Josh said it. Everybody's going to be picking Clemson, and for some reason, I'm going to be one of those people. And it's not really because of the name recognition. Look, they won 10-plus games for such a long time. They were really good. They kept getting back. And I think Dabo finally kind of opened up his eyes a little bit this offseason to what college football is and the realities of it. He went to the portal a little bit more than he has in the past. He's got some guys on his roster that have been there. They're only returning 53% of production, which I actually think is a beneficial thing for a team like them that underperformed a season ago. They've got a guy at quarterback in Christopher Vizina, who is in his fourth year with the program. I think when you can spend time behind a guy that's now, with the Jets in the NFL at a program like Clemson that's, produced quarterbacks in the past, it's only going to help you. And I think it's only going to help him be really successful this season. I think they have a pretty easy schedule as well in terms of the ACC. They play LSU week 1. They'll probably get crushed because, they probably will. But UNC, Cal, Virginia Tech, Florida State, Syracuse, Georgia Tech, Duke, I don't see outside of Miami where their problem could really lie unless Georgia Tech was able to reload. And I just don't see Georgia Tech being able to, overcome the loss of Haynes King. So I'm going to go with Clemson this year to get it done and to return to glory in the ACC.
Worth noting that Georgia Tech is bringing in the younger Mendoza brother as their starting quarterback this
season. Doesn't move the needle for me.
No, and it maybe not, but it's just interesting to see. So 3 Miamis and a Clemson there. I think
no Virginia Tech love.
No, never.
Because you have to be able to win in the big moments to win the conference.
There are no big moments in the ACC.
Yeah, but he'll find a way to lose the big moment that does show up.
Well, let's go to the Big 12 because this is a conference that does have quite a few big moments, but it's also a conference that I think is safe to say is maybe the most wide open. And there's quite a few teams. We'll start with Dylan again. I'll make my pick. We'll kind of just go in the same order here. Dylan says, and I think we all agree, so this is a mess of a conference. He says he doesn't want to see Texas Tech win because he doesn't like the way they've been going about things. I'm sure the Sorsby situation has to do with that. Also, they got Thomas Castellanos this afternoon to commit. He's tempted to go for BYU, but he also believes in Mestamaker, who is coming over from North Texas. He believes in Oklahoma State. He says their schedule isn't too terrible, so he's going to take the risk and ride with the Cowboys and go with Oklahoma State. For me, I like Houston this year. I don't know why, but as I was going through it, they just started to appeal to me a little bit. Connor Wegman's going to take a next step, hopefully. I think they have an underrated running back in Mekhi Hughes, who was at Tulane, also at Oregon. He redshirted. He ran for 2,700 yards across 2 seasons, and I think in a conference like the Big 12, where defense is so stout against especially the passing game, running the ball, controlling the clock is going to be so important. And I think that Houston, hopefully, with that defense that they have, they can control the clock, not give up too many points. Mekhi Hughes can be a difference maker, potentially be the conference player of the year. I want to give a shout out to BYU as well. I think Bear Bachmeier is so underrated as a quarterback. I think he's got a unique skill set. I just think Houston, and I actually think BYU and Houston will meet in the Big 12 championship, but I like Houston a little bit more. Josh, we'll go to you.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned them. I am going to go with BYU in this. I think the Sataki saga over the offseason. Remember when that was the biggest concern?
You're just like Crumble Cookie.
Dude, they don't have one in Bismarck that I know of. I haven't actually looked yet. Probably I will find one. If not that, I think there's an Insomnia, which is kind of close to it. But remember when that was the biggest concern that everybody had over the offseason in college football was the crumble cookie conundrum and not the fact that we have 27-year-olds trying to come
Just
back
to
and
let
play
you
college
know,
football.
820 43rd Avenue, Bismarck, North Dakota. There's a crumble cookie.
Gentlemen, it's been fun. I have to end my time on
He
this
pulled that up
podcast
so quick.
I typed in
yeah, he had it on
crumble
speed
cookies.
He had it
Bismarck,
on speed dial.
North Dakota. I spelled crumble. I spelled cookie. I spelled Bismarck all wrong, but somehow it still came up.
He
Look,
was so excited to look it up that he had to spell every word wrong.
Yeah. Anyways, back on track. Bear Bachmeier. I mean, he had a fantastic freshman season. I think he's only going to get better with time. I think that this is a BYU team that I know that Stocky kind of came out a few weeks ago and had like slightly dissed the athletic director and everything like that, which is kind of funny given everything transpired. But I think that the way that that team kind of rallied around when he decided that he was going to stay, I think it's going to give them a little bit of extra motivation. I think they were already one of the best teams in college football last year. I think we saw it. And yeah, I just think that they're a team. I think Texas Tech has the most talent overall, but at the end of the day, hate it or love it, quarterback is the most important position on the football field, and BYU has the best quarterback in this conference, I think. And so BYU is going to have their hands on the end of that big 12 title trophy. I don't know where I was going with that. I kind of lost train of thought, but
You were thinking about
BYU.
the cookie.
Yeah, I was. God bless, dude.
Justin, make your pick.
Yeah, I was going to say it's going to be interesting to see how the crumble cookies here in this conference, or how the cookie crumbles. You guys got there before. You guys got there before I could. I thought I was going to go before Josh that time, but still wanted to get that out there. Look, I think at the end of it, the best player in the Big 12, best quarterback in the Big 12 was a freshman last year in Bear Bachmeier. And the way that, Bachmeier was able to play and lead BYU, at the end of it, I was picking against BYU almost every week last year, and it wasn't working. So I'm just not going to make that same mistake this year. I'm going to go with BYU. I trust Kalani Sitake. I trust Bear Bachmeier. Their only competition that I see is Texas Tech. But look, Will Hammond is coming off of an injury himself, right? They lost him last year, and it made it, tough. It's going to make it tough for him to get back for this year. There's questions about his week 1 status. And to have Tommy Castellanos as your backup, look, I think he played great at Boston College. I think he underperformed at Florida State. You don't know what you're getting from him week in, week out. So I don't trust the quarterback situation there, and I don't think they're going to be able to overcome that. So give me Bear Bachmeier and give me BYU.
So we got a couple of BYUs, a Oklahoma State, and a Houston pick for your Big 12. Let's go ahead and move over to the Big 10. It does seem like a tighter race a little bit in the Big 10. It always kind of separates themselves. We'll start with Dylan. He says they're a team on a warpath with 2 players who were in New York City and one who could very well win the Heisman. We'll take a guess at who that could be. Well, if you were thinking Oregon, you're wrong. He says Oregon's good. Ohio State is great. So he is going with the Buckeyes. I'm on the other side. I think Ohio State's good, but I think the pressure of being the number 1 team in the country is going to be tough. I mean, they play Texas early on. Ohio State does. I think Oregon is going to take a step forward this year. I think Oregon is, with Dan Lanning, is going to be the team to beat this season. I mean, Dante Moore, Decory Moore, I think Evan Stewart coming back is going to be so big for them, just getting another weapon out there. But I think the biggest X factor for Oregon is Coy Parrish.
I was just going to say.
I mean, I feel like he is flying under the, maybe not flying under the radar, but that defense is good already, and they just got better with maybe the best player, defensively one of the best secondary players in the country in Coy Parrish. Also a very good offensive player when he wants to be as well, if they decided to play him both ways. But Coy Parrish is going to be the X factor for Oregon this year, and I think he takes them over the edge against Ohio State in the championship. I do want to shout out Penn State. Their schedule is a cakewalk, but I think they are not better than some of those top teams.
Marshall's no joke. I just talked about
the
that.
Thundering Herd. So we have an Ohio State and an Oregon. Josh, are you one of those 2 teams, or are we going a different route?
I am not one of those 2 teams because the issue that we have, and we did this last year, was when we always have, the 2 teams that looked like they're going to be the 2 best going in, and it failed spectacularly. I think we all had like Penn State and Ohio State, or Penn State and Oregon last year as our preview for the conference championship. I still don't trust Julian Sayin as a quarterback for Ohio State. I just don't. I mean, look, this is an Ohio State team that really struggled to score any points.
Justin, he doesn't trust Julian Sayin, but he trusts a 5-touchdown in 5-game Jackson Arnold last year. So,
okay, well, Ohio State scored
You
like
don't
24
trust
points.
the most.
I mean, he was a
accurate
Heisman
quarterback
finalist.
in college football.
This is an early hot take from Joshua Bartosik.
I just don't, dude. Okay, sure.
I'll hear
yeah,
you
he
out.
was
You know what? I'm going to mute my
Yeah,
mic.
yeah,
so I
we'll
don't
listen.
say anything,
Give him the
and
floor,
I'm
give him the floor.
I'm going to hear you out.
Here's the issue that I have with Ohio State last year. Where did that offense go where it mattered most at the end of the season? They completely tailed off. Julian Sayin was supposed to have the training wheels off by that point. Yeah, he was one of the most accurate quarterbacks. I understand that, but he didn't translate the points on the football field. You know who else was a very accurate quarterback his freshman season? Drew Aller. What did Drew Aller do as a Penn State quarterback? Hate to say it, jack shit. Pardon my French. He really didn't do anything. He just had 2 interceptions that year, and that team kind of stunk when it mattered most. He stunk when it mattered most throughout the rest of his career. I don't trust a guy that's just accurate. I want a guy that can put points on the football field and put points on the table. Julian Sayin didn't do that last year. You know who does put points on the table and did it at an extremely high pace last year? The team that went undefeated. I don't understand why we are sleeping on the Indiana Hoosiers. They got the best transfer quarterback, in my opinion, in Josh Hoover, who has put up outstanding numbers. I understand it's at TSU. Or TCU, sorry, not TSU. That's not real. That's Texas State. Yeah, or Tarleton State. I don't even know. Josh Hoover put up unreal numbers for his entire career at TCU. I understand it is a conference that TCU plays in that really does emphasize offense. But the thing is that Josh Hoover, a lot of people are a lot higher on than people were on Fernando Mendoza last year. And he gave him an ACC that had no defense either. So I don't really understand why we're looking at a team that did a really, really good job at attacking the transfer portal, a guy, Kurt Signetti, who has completely turned the program around, went undefeated, and looks to do the exact same thing this year. I don't understand why we're not talking about them, and I'm sorry, I just do not. I don't like Ohio State's offense. They had too much talent to only score, I think it was 24 points over their last like 3 or 4 games. It's just not good. It's not worth it.
I want to say 2 things, and they are really, really quick. One, I agree. Josh Hoover, I think he is one of my dark horses to make NYC, to be in the Heisman contention. I just think, obviously, you look at transfer quarterbacks and their Heisman results. Second thing I want to say, and this is going against it, it's going against my point with picking Oregon a little bit, but I got to back up Julian Sayin a little bit more. You bring in Chris Henry, 6'5" receiver, number 1 in the country, add him to Jeremiah Smith, who is already, in my opinion, the best receiver in the country. You're just adding more weapons for Julian Sayin. So, I mean, especially when a guy's 6'5", all he's got to do is throw it up there.
He had a top 5 draft pick.
Cardinal Tate is good. Chris Henry Jr. is going to be better. Trust me.
Sure, but I'm telling you right now that he had 2 top 5 NFL draft picks on his team as his receivers last year, and still did not score enough points.
He was in NYC. Field. That's all I'm going to say. Justin, we'll go for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that argument, and I actually respect it. You made yourself sound smart compared to the beginning of the take when I thought
made myself sound smart.
When I thought you were a little crazy and maybe on something. But no, it's a fair argument. It's reasonable. But they also ran into the, sawhorse of the defense of Indiana. That was incredible all year. They lost a lot of talent, did the Hoosiers, on that defense. And, they did bring guys in the portal, but Ohio State did the same. Where was Ohio State's biggest problem last year in these games? It wasn't Julian Sayin. It wasn't Jeremiah Smith. It wasn't Bo Jackson. It was their offensive line. Their offensive line is a year more experienced now. They've had the offseason to gel. I believe they brought in a couple, 1 or 2 transfers. They brought in some freshmen there too. Like, they went out and addressed their need. Their need was offensive line. That's what got them killed against Indiana. And they didn't really get killed by Indiana, but that was their problem, was their offensive line. Sayin, understands that now. They've got more talent on their offense, which I don't know how that's possible, but Brandon Inniss, Jeremiah Smith, Bo Jackson, Chris Henry Jr., they've got so many guys that for Sayin to find. And, when it comes down to it, I don't want to trust Ryan Day because I think he's a problem at times. But you look at what they've got this year. It's Indiana on the road, USC on the road, Oregon at home. Like, it's a tough schedule. Michigan's at home this year, so they shouldn't lose that one. If they can, get to the Big Ten championship, they're going to be battle tested and they're going to win the Big Ten championship. I don't want to say it by Josh, but Ohio State, I think, is going to win the Big Ten this year. I don't know if they'll win it all, but they've got the talent to do so. And I guess, like Dylan said, they've got 2, 3. They might have all 4 potential finalists in New York City come the end of the year because they're just that talented.
Yeah, somebody at Ohio State in that offense is going to get overshadowed by someone
welcome
else.
Welcome back, Josh.
Yeah, welcome back. But we
got
got a couple Ohio States.
He disappeared for a second.
We got a couple Ohio State, a Oregon pick, and an Indiana pick as well. Let's get to our final Power 4 conference as we approach about an hour and a half here. That is the SEC, which is always probably the most competitive in the country. We'll go ahead and give Dylan's pick, and him and I are on the same page because he says Texas stock has never been hotter, and he may eat crow. I'm not sure what that means, but he might eat crow, but he believes in Arch.
I think it means that word that Josh said before.
Gotcha.
What word did I say before?
Don't worry about it. Let's not repeat it.
But he says the O-line is better, and they got him weapons, and he didn't explicitly state what weapons, but I have them down. Talking about Cam Coleman, who is a fantastic wide receiver coming over. Hollywood Smothers, who Josh is familiar with. Really
Hollywood.
But they have maybe the best defensive player in the country as well in Colin Simmons. And that Texas defense is already good. I think year 3 of Arch, you talk about the year 3 in the NFL. I think maybe it still applies here to college. So I'm going to take Texas as well. I do think a team that maybe is not off the radar, and I know we talked a little bit about them earlier, but LSU, I mean, they come in with a transfer quarterback of Sam Leavitt, who is the top player in the portal this year. They bring a lot back. Trey'Dez Green looks like one of the top players in the country at tight end. They bring Whit Weeks back in that, linebacking core. And I don't know. I think LSU maybe with the way Lane Kiffin coaches can make a run in the SEC. I think they will have a learning curve. I think they take a loss early. But who knows? Maybe they bounce back. I just really like Sam Leavitt. I'm a big fan of him. I've watched a lot of his games at Arizona State, and I believe in his ability when he is healthy. But I will take Texas along with Dylan. Justin, let's go to you here first, and then we'll wrap up with Josh.
To be honest, I could look through every SEC team and tell you a reason I don't want to pick them. I don't like Kalen DeBoer in the SEC, so there goes Bama for me. I just don't like Lane Kiffin. I don't think the Tigers are going to gel like people think they are because of all this noise around them. And I would never pick them even if I thought they were going to gel. So the Tigers are out the door for me. Oklahoma has not been what it should be or what they expected to be under Brent Venables. Their defense has been the problem, and he was, such a good defensive coordinator at Clemson. They've struggled to fill his shoes since he left. But Oklahoma, their defense hasn't, taken that on. They had a good year last year. John Mateer, when healthy, looks solid, but I don't trust their defense in the big moments. Ole Miss, I'm kind of on the struggle bus with because I just don't expect them to be as good, with Pete Golding, who didn't want to be a head coach, taking over as their head coach. I know they still have Trinidad Chambliss, who kind of kicked off this whole thing with eligibility and whatnot. They did keep a lot of their talent. They did make it far in the postseason. Maybe I should trust them. And obviously, Texas, it's Arch Manning. It's Texas. It's Steve Sarkisian. The reason I don't like Texas is because everyone else likes Texas this year. Like, I really do think Arch took a real big step at the end of last year. I think they went out in the portal and got things done. But they start the season against Ohio State. Is that going to be another tough game for them? Yes, it's going to be very tough. But if they lose that one, are they going to snowball like Penn State did after their whiteout loss to Oregon last year, in which all their hype of the season was in that contest early in the season, and they were never able to rebound after that? I don't necessarily think so, but I don't like picking Texas here because I just struggle to believe they're going to come out on top week in and week out with inconsistent coaching, inconsistent quarterback play, and inconsistent defensive play as well. That being said, who did I leave? Like, I didn't even touch the bottom half of the SEC. I'm going to go back. I don't like to do it. I'm going to be wrong here, but I'm going to say Trinidad Chambliss does something for Ole Miss, and I'm going to go with the Rebels winning the SEC. Yeah, why not?
Josh?
Yeah, I like what you brought up, Justin, about Texas, because the way that people are talking about Texas and the way that people are talking about the way that Arch Manning started to develop and the way that people are talking about it, they went out and they got really big gets in the transfer portal is the exact same way that everybody talked about Penn State last year. How did that end for Penn State? With their worst season in years, and it got their head coach fired. Do I think the exact same thing's going to happen with Texas? No, I think Steve Sarkisian's in a spot where it's going to take a lot for him to get fired. I think if they, however, I think if they miss the college football playoff, I think there's a chance he's on a very, very big hot seat where you just chalk it up as Arch Manning just shares the same last name and not the same character traits as a quarterback as those in his family. With that being said, I'm going to go back to old reliable and just pick Georgia. It's Kirby Smart. He's an unreal head coach. It's a team that's still pretty dang good. I don't love Gunnar Stockton, but I think I trust Gunnar Stockton more in pivotal moments than I do Arch Manning. And I think I also trust Kirby Smart more as a head coach. Like you said, Justin, the inconsistent coaching that Steve Sarkisian has. I think I'm going to go with Georgia in that sense. I want to switch things up. Texas, I do think if everything clicks for them, they have a chance to be the best team in the country. I think Cam Coleman's a great get. I think Hollywood Smothers is a really good get as well. No bias as an NC State guy. But again, everyone said the exact same thing about Penn State last year. Again, very different situations, but Steve Sarkisian's kind of getting up there in terms of something's got to give eventually. And if this isn't the year, I don't think it ever will be. And with that being said, I think there's too much pressure on them, so I think it'll be Georgia.
Well, with that, we have a couple Texas, an Ole Miss, and a Georgia to round things out. Those are all of our conference champion picks. We made our Week 0 picks. We talked a little bit about some NFL players trying to go back to college. We talked about the preseason poll as well. So
Do we make a Heisman pick quickly?
We're only at an
let's
hour
save
and a
that for
half.
next episode.
All right.
But we're going to save that for next episode once we get to see we'll get Dylan back on here, and that'll be our talk about
Maybe Corsa will be on.
Yeah, maybe we can get Grant on. But that will do it for Season 2, Episode 1 here on Locks and Longshots. Again, we are on Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. So make sure to follow us. We'll be posting some content there, clips from these podcasts, whether you're watching us on YouTube or Spotify. We encourage you to follow us there, like, subscribe, all of that jazz. And comments as well. Give us your thoughts on some of these takes that we've had, especially with all the issues going on in college football right now. Give us your picks as well if you're interested, and we'll try to respond to them and give a little bit of feedback on what we think of some of those takes. But gentlemen, good to be back and looking forward to episode number 2. This has been episode 1, season 2 of Locks and Longshots. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Bye.